From Brie Larson to Captain America himself, these are the Marvel actors that never actually wanted to be in the MCU.
It's Creed.
She crashed the Aces aircraft.
When did this crash happen?
What?
You're a communicator, you obviously can't be trusted with it.
The MCU is one of the biggest franchises in film history. While some actors may have been wary about joining the MCU back in the day, huge A-list, Oscar-winning actors are now flocking to join the MCU in various ways. Everybody in Hollywood, regardless of their past or expertise, knows that landing a role in the MCU could benefit them, or at least give them a big payday. But there are many actors that don't want to join the MCU, and there are actors that are currently working for Marvel that never thought they would, as they simply didn't want to be in the MCU or in a superhero movie. There are many reasons why these current Marvel actors steered clear of joining the MCU for a while. Brie Larson, who plays Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, publicly came out and explained why she never wanted to be in the MCU. According to Larson, she was scared about what taking on this huge role would mean for her personal life. Larson was worried that becoming Captain Marvel would change her life forever. She would no longer be able to do normal things like go to a museum or out to eat without being recognized. Even though Larson was quite known before she became Captain Marvel, she had won an Oscar for Best Actress for her performance in Room. She was still able to go about town without causing too much fuss. When asked about why she at first didn't want to join the MCU when they approached her with the Captain Marvel role, she said, "I was scared of what would happen to me. I was like, what world is this, where these are the choices I have to make as an artist?" Eventually, Larson got over her fear and took the leap, joining the MCU and starring in the first female-led superhero movie. Larson isn't the only actor who hesitated when first approached to join the MCU.
It's a family. Yeah, it's a family through and through. Everybody was really nice. I don't know. I had a really good time. Excited to see what the future holds, and I have no idea what will happen next.
Paul Rudd, who plays Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, was a little worried when he considered joining Marvel. According to Rudd, when he first met with Marvel boss Kevin Feige, the MCU was still in its beginning stages. It was nowhere near what it would eventually become. So when he was first approached with the role of Ant-Man, Rudd didn't know what he should do. He wasn't sure if his career should go in the superhero direction. Rudd was pretty established when he was approached with this opportunity, thanks to his countless roles in comedies over the years. Let's not forget his iconic roles in Clueless and Friends. Rudd felt he really had to think about his career. Describing his mindset at the time, he said, "It would have been like somebody saying, 'How would you feel about doing Dancing with the Stars?' A superhero franchise was never on my radar."
Captain America.
Mr. Lang?
It's an honor. I'm shaking your hand too long.
When he finally decided that he should take the role, he then worried that he wasn't the right fit. After all, Ant-Man is a superhero, and Rudd worried that someone else could play the character better than him. Eventually, Rudd decided to ignore all his worries and take the leap to join the MCU, even if he initially didn't intend to. Jonathan Majors was yet another MCU actor who, at first, had no intention of actually joining the MCU. But Majors' desire to steer clear of Marvel differs from some of the other actors I've mentioned, as Majors was mainly only worried about his acting and career, rather than his personal life or worries that he wouldn't do a good job in such a big-budget movie. Majors, who attended Yale's drama school, has a very particular and highly trained approach to acting and his overall craft. Now, Majors isn't the first actor to question Marvel acting, and he clearly won't be the last.
With these folks, with these facilities, you know, it's kind of greedy of me, you know, but I'm quite blessed to have the opportunity. Yeah.
Big-budget movies and action movies tend to be different than, say, smaller indie films when it comes to acting performances, and Majors was worried that they would force him to change his acting method to better fit the franchise. Because of this worry, Majors didn't want to join the MCU. However, he was eventually won over, and luckily found out that he wouldn't have to change his acting approach at all. He said, "They've not asked me to change my approach to acting, which was my biggest fear."
In the kitchen, what is the thing you're eating the most?
Oh, probably eggs.
Yes!
Yeah.
Okay,
Eggs.
for a while I was eating 8 eggs a day, and then my cholesterol was 611.
8 eggs a day?
8 eggs a
You
day.
should probably do 12 egg whites.
We gotta wrap this up. I'm learning so much.
Oscar Isaac, who plays Stephen Grant, and Mark Spector in Moon Knight, was very hesitant about joining the MCU. He simply didn't want to do it. He had already starred in the newest Star Wars trilogy, which was controversial to say the least. Isaac also starred in X-Men's Days of Future Past as the main villain, another big-budget movie that fell short and left a bad taste in Isaac's mouth. When asked about why he didn't want to join the MCU at first, Isaac said, "My initial thing was, no, I don't want to go back into that kind of machinery. I did that already. The last thing I want is to be on a massive set thinking, what am I doing here?" However, Isaac began to change his mind a bit when he learned more about Moon Knight and all that he would be able to do with his character. The more he learned about it, the less hesitant he became. Explaining how he finally decided to join the MCU, he said, "It felt handmade, and it's the first legitimate Marvel character study since Iron Man." Once he realized that he could truly do his own thing with Moon Knight, and once he realized this job was different from his other franchise jobs, his fears evaporated and he fully joined the Marvel Universe. One of the first big Marvel superheroes was also worried about joining the MCU. Mark Ruffalo, who plays Bruce Banner aka the Hulk, didn't want to join the MCU. While some of the other actors I've talked about hesitated before finally joining, it appears that Ruffalo really put up a fight against joining the MCU, as the powers that be at Marvel had to continuously reach out to him to try to convince him to join. Marvel was looking to recast the Hulk, who was previously played by Edward Norton, and they believed that Ruffalo fit the bill. When director Joss Whedon kept reaching out while casting for the Avengers, Ruffalo continued to avoid him. Why? Ruffalo said, "I was scared. I didn't know what I could add to what I already thought had been done so well before me. I'd only been doing indie movies up until that point, so I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person for this." And Joss Whedon's like, "Yeah, you are the right person." Eventually, word got to Iron Man himself, and Robert Downey Jr. decided to give Ruffalo a call and convince him to join the MCU once and for all. Ruffalo remembers this conversation and said, "I got a call from Downey. It must have made it to him that I was hemming and hawing, and he just simply said, 'Ruffalo, let's go, we got this.' And then after that, I was like, I guess I have to do it." And that was that. All Ruffalo needed was a bit of encouragement. And who better to encourage you than Robert Downey Jr., perhaps one of the biggest actors who at first denied the chance at being in the MCU? None other than Captain America himself. Chris Evans, who played Steve Rogers, was worried about taking the role, much as Brie Larson was. Evans's mother was actually the one to open up about his hesitation. According to her, when Evans was first approached by Marvel with the role of Captain America, he worried about how this would impact his personal life. Evans had a steady career before joining the MCU. However, he wasn't necessarily recognized all the time in his everyday life, which he enjoyed. His mother said his biggest fear was losing his anonymity. He said, "I have a career now where I can do work I really like. I can walk my dog. Nobody bothers me. Nobody wants to talk to me. I can go wherever I want, and the idea of losing that is terrifying to me." So how'd she convince him to take the role? She explained, "I said to him, look, you want to do acting work for the rest of your life? If you do this part, you will have the opportunity." And that was all it took. So from Chris Evans to Brie Larson, these were the Marvel actors that never actually wanted to be in the MCU.